Hello, my name is Leah White, and this is my social media project for week 3. So, for this project, I will be discussing the 3 types of social media platforms that I have chosen for this project. I will be describing them and just giving a brief background about them. I will be discussing the impacts that social media has on our emotions and how our emotions can impact the use of social media. I will be discussing the relationship and how we process the world around us based off of our impacts from social media and how it can, in turn, shape our self-concept, self-esteem, and how we see ourselves and others. And then I will be discussing how social media impacts our education, social relationships, and society at large. And then just give some positive and negatives of those, and then a reflection of my beliefs before I started the project and after completing this project. So the first social media platform is Instagram. Instagram is a free social networking service built around sharing photos and videos. This platform is used by thousands and millions of people around the world. It can be used for personal use and for business purposes as well. You can promote your businesses on these platforms. You can give resources to those, and you can also share and post videos of yourselves, and that's a way that people use it to connect with other people, such as family, friends, and the community around you. It's just a good way to keep in contact with people. So the next one is Twitter. Twitter is a social networking system that will service that users use to interact with others. They post messages known as tweets, and you can also post videos and pictures of yourself and others. So a lot of people use this as a platform to promote their businesses and to obviously connect with others, but also it's a good way to keep up with the political world and news. So TikTok is a social media platform and is used to create a variety of short video clips, and people usually use TikTok to create dances and comedy skits and educational videos as well. And it's just a good way to connect with your community around you and post similar things that you like, other videos that are similar to what you like to watch and what you like to see, and just a good way to network as well. So now I will be discussing the impacts that social media has on our emotions and how it can impact the way that we use social media. So the first definition that really correlates with social media to me was representativeness heuristic. And by definition, that is the tendency to presume, sometimes despite contrary odds, and someone or something belongs to a particular group if resembling or representing a typical member. So for this example, it's kind of, so to give a better, so for this example, to better describe it, I'm going to use the social media examples that I have chosen. So for Instagram, a lot of people post things that represent themselves, but sometimes other things that represent themselves are not being shown as much. So people will presume or think that, assume that those character traits are not relating to themselves. So for example, if somebody in the social media world on Instagram posts that they are an athlete, everybody that goes on their page will just assume that they're an athlete. But they might also be an advocate for women's rights as well, but they just don't post it as much. So people just assume that they're only an athlete and that is their identity, that they are an athlete. But really they have other characteristics and other things that they can bring to this world and just show that they're not just what they show off to the world. So it's the same thing with TikTok. TikTok, people post dance moves, people post educational videos and things like that. And they might only portray themselves one way or represent themselves one way, but really they're a full package. They might sing, they might dance, they might act. And people might just assume that they only do one of those things. So, in turn, it can have some negative aspects that we're going to get into a little later. But the next one that I will be discussing is counterfactual thinking. So by definition, that is imagining alternative scenarios and outcomes that might have happened but didn't. So a good way to describe this is all social media platforms have a thing called followers. So when people click on your page, they can follow you and keep up to date with everything that you post. Followers is a big deal to the social media world because it shows how popular or how impactful you are to the world. Now, there are some people that do not have as many followers as others, but they provide the same content. So I'll give an example of counterfactual thinking. So someone who has Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok might only have 100 followers, but they create the same content as someone who has 5,000 followers. The people who have only 100 followers will not feel like they are adequate enough or as important, or are not creating content that really represents who they are, and they will not be as proud because they don't have the amount of followers as somebody who is, posting the same content that they are. So that kind of thinking just kind of creates like people look at themselves as inadequate because they think that, I'm not good enough to post on social media, or I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, my personality is not enough. So in turn, some of the negative aspects would be addiction. People will now start to, become addicted to social media. They'll chase this facade that they feel like they have to be. So that goes along with false representation. People feel like they have to be something that they're not because they are trying to be these things that they feel like they have to be. And it's also a dependence. If you're getting your self-worth or self-importance, which we'll get into later, from social media, then you tend to get dependent on this platform. Okay, so the next one that I will be discussing is about the correlations that it can have. So it's just the relationship of the world around us that social media has, and the self-concept, the self-esteem, and how we see others can be impacted by social media. So the first definition is belief perseverance, and by definition that just means that it's a persistence of one's initial conceptions, such as when the basis for one's belief is discredited, but an explanation of why the belief might be true survives. So this is basically just fake news. So a lot of times a social media influencer will provide fake news to the world because they are paid to do so, or they just want to be influential in that way. So for example, if somebody on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok posts a dietary substance called Slim Quick, then everybody will think that they have to take this substance in order to get this particular body structure, in order to be perceived as beautiful. So this goes along with their self-concept, self-esteem, and how they see others. You don't have to do these things, but that's how people perceive social media, based off of belief perseverance. And the next one is fundamental attribution error, and that's by definition the tendency for observers to underestimate situational influences and overestimate disproportional influences upon others' behavior. So basically that's just like, for example, if somebody walks into work late, they're seen as a lazy worker, but if another person walks in late, they make an excuse for why they're late. And so it's basically hypocrisy. That happens a lot in social media because, one person might say, oh, well, I can wear this hairstyle because I'm, the best thing in the world. But if you wear it, it's, oh, that's ugly, things like that. So that definitely is detrimental to somebody's self-concept and how they perceive themselves. It can lower their self-esteem, and it could also make them look at other people as if they are not adequate because they now have a changed perception of how they see the world. So there are some influences that Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok have on our education, on our social relationships, and society at large. So for Instagram, three positives would be, there's a lot of social media influencers that are positive, and they give out good educational resources, and they give these resources to the public, so they can give you pamphlets, they can give you there's a lot of GoFundMe accounts that help people to build themselves up. So those can be positive, but negative could be especially the educational system. There's a lot of people that have contradicting views from social media and in the school. So in the school system, they have, obviously it's factual evidence for what they are believing, but then on social media they might have contradicting evidence that is basically fake news, and people will choose the social media as the true fact of what they're trying to talk about. So that can have an influence on the educational system. For our relationships, it can harm our relationships because a lot of people on social media have, again, different perceptions of how they see the world, and that can influence who you choose as your friends, how you choose your friends, and how long you are friends with those people. And some negatives to that could be that you lose your friends. You don't have platonic relationships anymore, or romantic relationships, because you're listening to those influences from social media. And then the last one is just society at large. There's a lot of resources out there that help other people, and that could be a positive, but a negative could be that it definitely is detrimental to somebody's mental and physical health because they are always chasing this narrative of what they believe that they should be. So a reflection, basically, before completing this project, I did have I had